Hey there, I'm Mike Gillett, your host, and welcome to 1936 Part 4, Episode 7 of the Soundscape series of When Radio Ruled. This podcast is a montage of excerpts from old-time radio shows broadcast August 24 to October 3, 1936. Starring Cecil B. DeMille, the cast of the Major Bowes Amateur Hour, the cast of the Jell-O Summer Show, Eddie Cantor, Irene Ryan, Walt Disney, the 1936 New York Giants, Mickey Mouse, the 1936 New York Yankees, Donald Duck, the 1936 Chicago Cubs, Stoop Nagel and Bud, the 1936 Chicago White Sox, President Roosevelt, and more. These soundscapes are a result of the research phase of the When Radio Ruled historical documentary series. In order to find the best old-time radio excerpts to explain the essence of the era, I listened to hundreds of hours of old-time radio broadcasts, looking for the most interesting bits. For the documentary about 1936, I listened to almost 95 hours of recorded past. When I hear something outstanding, a song or a joke or a comedy sketch or a news report or an interview, I add it to a best of clip reel, so I can easily find all the best excerpts when I'm assembling the documentary. But not everything can get into the final version. For 1936, I boiled 95 hours of programming down to 6 hours of excerpts, from which a little under 2 hours made the final cut. And it seems like such a waste. Listening to these clip reels is one of my favorite parts of the process. I don't remember what's on the reel, so it's one unexpected gem after another. And I want to share that experience with you. These excerpts are offered without commentary for your entertainment and education. So here are voices from 1936. Voices sadly now silenced. Great performers living again because you're listening now.
I guess an ice cream soda wouldn't go bad either, eh?
Would you like an ice cream soda, Amy? I like a college ice.
Say, Goldstein's got something new. I tried it out last night. She'll rave about it. He says New York's going wild over it.
Yes?
You know when New York goes wild over anything, it must be good.
What is it?
Yeah, what is it, Biff?
Well, he spreads nuts all over the ice cream.
Oh, I never heard of that before. Did you, Amy? No.
Say, that guy ain't dead. And Biff Grimes never lets the grass grow under his feet neither. New York style, that's me, big stuff every time. You know something, little girl? Virginia, that's the name, ain't it? Well, do you know where they got that name from? State of Virginia. Yes, sir. That's where Abraham Lincoln was born. I guess you didn't know that, did you? Very few people do. Yes, indeed it is.
Eat, play, and work as you see fit. Don't pass up a good dinner because you're afraid of getting fat, but compensate for the food by proper exercise a little later. Give your body this attention it deserves, and I can safely say that after a few weeks of sensible training, you will feel better, look better, and your whole mental attitude will be completely renewed.
You get a different view of these stars than anyone else. Who are the best physical specimens in Hollywood?
I'd say Joan Crawford, who has trained faithfully for years, Norma Shearer and Dolores Del Rio. And the men with the best physiques, in my opinion, are Clark Gable and Robert Taylor. A couple of weeks ago, Robert Taylor flew 3,000 miles from New York to Hollywood just so he wouldn't miss a workout. But exercise need not be vigorous. Jeanette MacDonald's singing helps greatly to keep her fit. Try singing. It's great for your lungs and chest.
And perhaps a little rough on the neighbor's ears.
That's why I say never try to do too much of anything at one time. And here's something that may surprise you. When Eleanor Powell does one of her dance routines, she actually uses up more energy than Max Schmeling required to knock out Joe Louis.
Well, that seems to prove that Joe ought to take up dancing.
Or that Eleanor should challenge Braddock. In any event, I'm glad to have been here, Mr. DeMille, and if any of our audience would like a little more specific advice regarding exercises best fitted for themselves, I'll gladly try to help. Just address your letter to Donald Loomis, Metro Golden Mayer Studio, Culver City, California. Good night.
Look, Hap, I'm awful hungry. How's for getting a couple of hamburgers, huh?
Yeah. How about some nice breasted chicken under glass?
No, I think I'll get a nice sirloin steak.
And what do you think you're going to use for money, slug?
Pardon me, but do you boys mean that you're broke?
Broke? Listen, mister. Tomorrow we start borrowing from the church mice. Get it?
Oh, that's terrible.
In just a minute, we'll continue our presentation of Zap Soul, But first, a little domestic drama between the scenes. We're in the modern apartment of Jim and Elsie. They are dressing to go out in the evening. Elsie is putting on her stockings and pop, another run. Just listen to Jim.
What, again? Oh, say, I'll bet I could cut down on those stocking runs.
Oh, yeah? Well, put your mammoth brain to work.
Say, it never stops working. I'm full of dope on the question right now.
Well, spill it, big boy, but make it snappy.
Okay, here's the first tidbit. You know, I heard Sis spilling a mouthful about runs the other day.
Oh, I bet she was crabbing.
That's where you're balmy, baby. She's got the runs problem licked. Come on, Sis says, I tell a guy how you do it. Elsie's runs are driving me nuts. And she says nothing to it. Hardly a run have I had since I switched to Lux.
Say, that's an idea.
Well, I'll say so, Cupcake. And here's another.
Another what?
Another juicy bit. Heard my secretary spill this one on the phone.
I suppose her stockings never pop a run.
Right the first time. And do you know why? She uses Lux. Lux.
Well, I'm a smart girl, too. Here's where I switched to Lux.
Clever women everywhere are learning how Lux cuts down on stocking runs. It saves elasticity, you see. Cake soap rubbing and soaps with harmful alkali weaken elasticity. Then, even a slight strain on your stockings may snap a thread and start a run. Try Lux. You'll be amazed at how much longer your stockings wear. And once again, Mr. DeMille.
Girls in foreign capitals constantly keep their eyes on Hollywood for new ways of dressing their hair and new styles and clothes. More and more American phrases are found in English publications. Our traditions, culture, language, and social values are gradually Americanizing the globe. The end result is that the profit element in pictures abroad has become a secondary consideration. Their prime consideration right now is to maintain their own tradition and history.
Today, the motion picture industry suffered one of its greatest losses, Irving Thalberg. The Lux Radio Theater joins Hollywood and the entire nation in extending deepest sympathy to his wife, Norma Shearer, and his family. To Irving Thalberg, who has brought so many hours of happiness to people the world over, we dedicate these 10 seconds of silence. This is Cecil B. DeMille saying good night to you from Hollywood.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Major, may I present a few quick facts?
Go right along, Dinosaur.
There are certain things you get in any one of the famous 4 cars: Plymouth, Dodge, DeSoto, Chrysler. All 4 have safety steel bodies. You ride surrounded by steel. Yes, even the floors are steel. All 4 have genuine equalized pressure hydraulic brakes. So when you say stop, she stops. These 2 things alone mean safety for the American family. All 4 have floating power. The engine is so balanced and cushioned that you have to step on the accelerator before you're sure it's running. All 4 have new scientific distribution of weight, an amazing advance in riding comfort pioneered by Chrysler Corporation. And remember, only in the famous 4 cars, Plymouth, Dodge, DeSoto, and Chrysler, do you get all these engineering features that make for safety, comfort, and economy. Plymouth starts at $510 list price in Detroit, and it is the biggest, roomiest car in the lowest price range. The dependable, money-saving Dodge starts at $640. The beautiful, smart DeSoto is priced as low as $695. And you can even get a luxurious Chrysler for as little as $760. Finally, remember that you can own any of these cars on easy time payments through Commercial Credit Company Time Payment Service.
You did very well in Troy.
Oh, Troy. Well, which proves if at first you don't Schenectady, Troy again. Troy. Oh, that's not good, but it takes up space.
Oh, Jim!
Yeah.
.30 p.m., BULOVA, Boulevard Watch Time, WEAF, New York.
I've got 9 cows, and they're afraid to let me milk them. They're afraid to let you milk them? What kind of cows are they? Jersey heifers. They're not Jersey heifers. They're New York giants. How do you figure that out? Because they're afraid of the Yanks.
Well, never mind all this. For the taxpayers, let them kick in.
The taxpayers against they. All their lives, the taxpayers kick in for this and kick in for that. In fact, they kick in until they kick off, and after they kick off, they're still in the hole.
Well, maybe you're right, but after all, we're not as bad off as they are in Europe.
No?
No, I read in today's papers where Holland and Switzerland followed France off the gold standard.
Yes, they're starting their football season right with us.
Football season?
Sure. France kicked over the gold. That was 1 down and 2 to go. So Holland and Switzerland went into a huddle and decided to make it a triple threat. But they couldn't gain any ground because they had no reserves, and that's why they tried a collateral pass.
Well, what has that got to do with this country?
That's where all Americans fit in. France might try to make another touchdown here, and if we don't guard our end, we'll be thrown for a loss, and we'll never get a quarterback.
Today, the world's most popular screen personality is celebrating the 8th anniversary of his debut in films. He has awards from 9 different nations. President Roosevelt, Queen Mary, and Benito Mussolini are among his most ardent admirers. In Alaska, he's warmly received by the Eskimos, while in Ethiopia, even the war failed to stop the showing of his pictures. In France, where he won membership in the Legion of Honor, he's known as Michel Souris. The Japanese call him Mikikuchi. The Spanish, Miguel Ratoncito. His name, as you may have surmised, is Mickey Mouse. To Mickey, the world owes an immense debt of gratitude. But a still greater debt is due the man standing beside me now. Ladies and gentlemen, the creator of Mickey Mouse and the Silly Symphony cartoons, Mr. Walt Disney.
Thank you, Mr. DeMille. My knees are knocking together so hard they sound like a riveting machine. Maybe I'd better sit down.
Come on, Walt. Stand up to the microphone. Are you a man or a mouse?
Well, after associating with mice for so many years, I sometimes wonder myself. You see, as a matter of fact, Mickey and I have been pals long before he became an actor. His real name is Mortimer. But no regular fellow likes a name like Mortimer, so he changed his name to Mickey.
But it was not until Walt Disney made the first cartoon in sound, ladies and gentlemen, that Mickey attained star proportions. That film was called Steamboat Willie, and it was the late Roxy who had the courage to release it. I suppose, Walt, that the motion picture industry thought you were crazy to put sound in an animated cartoon.
Yes, completely nuts.
You know what they're saying about you today, now that you're making the first feature-length animated picture, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
I can imagine. What have you heard?
Now, perhaps you better imagine that, too. Anyway, how do you feel about it?
Well, Mr. DeMille, any picture's a gamble. But we're betting $750,000 that Snow White will be good entertainment.
My bet's on you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should cross-examine the young fellow on whom Walt bet his money 8 years ago. Mickey Mouse, take the stand.
Yes, Mr. DeMille.
Mickey, how does it feel to have the whole world celebrating your birthday?
Yes, Mr. DeMille. I mean, swell.
Who's the better actor, Mickey? You or Donald Duck?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Mickey's an actor, Mr. DeMille. Donald's just a clown.
Mickey, is it true that you're jealous of Donald Duck's meteoric rise to fame?
Oh, absolutely not, Mr. DeMille. Donald was starving to death singing in radio when Mickey found him.
I remember on the airwaves, he was like a duck out of water.
Yeah, just a wisecracker. Donald, get off Mr. DeMille's neck. Let go. There now. That's more like it. Remember, you're a star now. Yeah, and he's got a valet who washes his face with Lux soap.
Donald Duck, you've denied being the worst singer in the annals of radio. All right, prove it. Sing, and it better be good. Donald, I apologize. You're wonderful. Thank you, Walt. Good night, Mickey.
Good night, Mr. DeMille. Good night, Mr. DeMille.
A special election of the voters is being held today all over the United States to determine whether or not we shall have Stoopnagle in the White House or out of it. And the jittery candidate sits in his campaign headquarters at Crawling on the Hudson, New York, as reports come in from every nook and cranny of the country. Bud, who has stood by our candidate through thick and thin, high, wide, and handsome, black and blue, and fire and water, is pacing up and down as telegraph machines bring in the news.
Quiet here. Whatever you're doing, drop it. Nice dropping, boys. Now, in a second or two, we expect a report from California. Stand by. Well, here it is now. San Francisco, California. From 456 out of 200 precincts, final tabulation. Colonel Lemuel Q. Stoopnagle of New York, no vote.
Congratulations, Colonel. Not a single vote from California.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddlestuffer. Thank you. My, but I'm excited. Maybe I won't get into the White House after all.
Hey, is this a campaign headquarters for keeping Whitenagel out of the Stoop House? I got a message for you.
Hooray, men. Listen to this. It's from Dallas, Texas. It says, practically complete reports from 678 out of 200 counties here give Stoopnagle no votes and his opponent 456,678. It looks as though I have a good chance of not winning. Oh, boy.
Hey, my goodness, what's this?
Hey, Colonel, they're bringing the Alabama votes in here in an armored car. Here comes the man up the stairs with them now.
Alabama, 24 votes for Underwood. Well, that's fine, boys, but how about Stoopnagle?
Who's Stoopnagle?
I'll get that phone, men. Quiet now. Hello, campaign headquarters for keeping Stoopnagle out of the thing. Still spickle-nagling. Oh, hello, Ma. Yeah, it's a fine fight, Ma. Yeah, hope to lose any minute now, Ma. Yeah, I'll be right home, Ma. Goodbye.
Who is that, Colonel?
My father. He wanted to know about the mortgage.
Hey, shut that door. My gosh, that's ice cold wind coming in there.
Sorry, sir, but you'll have to stand it for a moment. The Alaska vote is coming in.
The vote from Alaska. Well, now, this is fine. I am Captain Bob Carson's vote, and I have come here on my little ship, the Norrisy, many long miles between here and the coast of Alaska. There was a vast amount of interest in the voting, and Stoopnagle is a vast favorite up in the vast stretches of the frozen North country. Yeah, well, how was the voting? Just a minute. How was the voting, Captain? We're all anxious to know, as the thing is pretty close here in the United States. Every person voted this year, and it was just fine. As nice a compliment as I ever paid to any candidate. Yeah, well, who won up there, Captain? Well, Stoopnagle is a great favorite up there. Everybody in the whole...
Captain, please, look. What was the final count of the vote?
Everybody likes Stoopnagel up there. When we were going...
Wait a minute. How many votes did Stoopnagel get?
Minus 42.
Say, Harry.
Yeah?
During all this confusion, have any results been coming in from the other states of the Union?
Yes, Bud, we've got them. Attention. The total vote. Other candidates, 13,567,002. Colonel Stoopnagel, 1.
A vote for me? A vote for me, Harry?
Yes.
Well, I've been double-crossed. The very idea. Give me that phone. Hello, operator. Get me Rhinelander 44422. Hello, Ma. Ah, gee, thanks, Ma.
Safer.
Here it
is.
They keep the jewels well locked up. There's nothing like a safe for keeping jewels.
Yes, and there's nothing so safe as eating price pointers, the oatmeal that tastes like cornflakes.
Hey, who is this guy? A copper?
No, he's just one of them radio advertisers. Go ahead and open the safe. He ain't going to bother us.
When your little boy comes home early from school in the afternoon after a hard day and he says, Mother, I'm hungry, what do? Tell him he can't have anything to eat until dinner time? Perhaps. But if you were a wise mother, you will say to him...
Hand me that nitroglycerin. There's a second tenor here, Clarence Walker.
That's my name.
That's your name, and you got the guitar there, huh? Second tenor. And what do you do now, please?
Well, I'm unemployed at the present.
Unemployed? Oh, I see. I thought you were in the WPA. Oh, you were? Well, you can lean on that second tenor there. And
Join us again next week when Fred Allen returns for more hours of smiles in the Old Town Hall. Until then, good night.
This is the Red Network of the National Broadcasting Company.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The following program is presented under the sponsorship of the Democratic National Committee. A record throng of 60,000 people has assembled at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania tonight to hear the President of the United States deliver another address in his campaign for re-election. The double-decker stands of the Pittsburgh Ball Club's big stadium, built to seat 38,000, are jammed to capacity, and the thousands of temporary chairs placed on the infield are all filled. People are standing along the sidelines of the big athletic field, all eager to hear President Roosevelt and get a glimpse of him as he speaks. It's a happy, smiling, waving president who stands now by the microphones which will carry his voice to a waiting nation, receiving the enthusiastic cheers of his fellow Americans here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Chairman, Governor Earl, my friends of Pennsylvania. A baseball park is a good place to talk about box scores. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about the box score of the government of the United States. I'm going to tell you the story of our fight to beat down the Depression and win recovery, and where I stand, and from where I stand, it looks as if the game was pretty well in the bag. Convinced that when government finance or any other kind of finance is honest, and when all the cards are on the table, there is no higher mathematics about it. It's just plain scoreboard arithmetic. Now, when when the present management of your team took charge in 1933, the national scoreboard looked pretty bad. In fact, it looked so much like a shutout for the team that you voted a change in management in order to give the country a chance to win the game. And today we are winning it. When the new management came to Washington, we began to make our plans to meet the immediate crisis, and plans that would carry the people of the country back to decent prosperity. You and I and everybody else saw millions out of work, saw the business concerns running in the red, saw the banks closing. Our national income had declined over 50%. And what was worse, it showed no prospect of recuperating by itself. By national income, I mean the total of all the income of all 125 million people in this country, the total of all the pay envelopes, all the farm sales, all the profits of all the businesses and all the individuals and all the corporations in America. During the 4 lean years before this administration took office, that national income that I'm talking about had declined from $81 billion a year to $38 billion a year. In short, you and I, all of us together, were making 41 billion, spelt with a B, not an M, less dollars in 1932 than we had made in 1929. Now, the rise and fall in national income, since it tells the story of how much you and I and everybody else are making, are an index of the rise and fall of national prosperity. It's also an index of the prosperity of your government. The money to run the government comes from taxes, and the tax revenue, in turn, depends for its size on the size of the national income. Thus, when the incomes and the values and the transactions of the country are on the downgrade, then the tax receipts of the government go on the downgrade too. And if the national income continues to decline, then the government cannot run without going into the red. The only way to keep the government out of the red is to keep the people out of the red. And so we had to balance the budget of the American people before we could balance the budget of the national government. That makes common sense, doesn't it? Well, when the box score, when the Democratic administration came in 1933, showed a net deficit in our national accounts of about $3 billion accumulated in the 3 previous years under my predecessor. national income was on a downward spiral, and federal government revenues were in a downward spiral. To pile vast new taxes would get us nowhere because values were going down, and that makes sense too. And so, on top of having to meet the ordinary expenses of the government, I recognize the obligation of the federal government to feed and take care of the growing army of homeless and destitute unemployed. Something had to be done. We all know that. A national choice had to be made. We could do one of two things. Some people urged me to let nature take its course. Some people urged me to continue a policy of doing nothing. I rejected that advice because nature was in an angry mood. To have accepted that advice would have meant a continued wiping out of people of small means, the continued loss of their homes and farms and small businesses into the hands of people who still had enough capital left to pick up those homes and farms and businesses at bankruptcy prices. It would have meant in a very short time the loss of all the resources of a multitude of individuals and families and small corporations. You would have seen throughout the nation a concentration of property ownership in the hands of 1 or 2% of the population, a concentration unequaled in any great nation since the days of the Roman Empire. And so the program of this administration set out to protect the small business, the small corporations, the small shop, and the small individual from the wave of deflation that threatened them. We realized then, as we do now, that the vast army of small businessmen and factory owners and shop owners form the background, the backbone. They, together with our farmers and workers, the backbone of America. And in our long-range plan, we recognize that the prosperity of America depended upon and would continue to depend upon the prosperity of all of them. I rejected the advice that was given to me to do nothing for an additional reason. I had promised, and my administration was determined, to keep the people of the United States from starvation. Yes, and I refuse to leave human needs solely in the hands of local communities which themselves were almost bankrupt. To have accepted that advice would have been to offer bread lines again to the American people, knowing this time, however, that in many places the lines would last far longer than the bread. And in those dark days, between us and a balanced budget, stood millions of needy Americans denied the promise of a decent American life. To balance our budget in 1933 or 34 or 35 would have been a crime against the American people. To do so, we would either have had to make a capital levy that would have been confiscatory, or we would have had to set our face against human suffering with callous indifference. When Americans suffered, we refused to pass by on the other side. Humanity came first. Now, my friends, nobody with any sense of responsibility lightly lays a burden on the income of a nation. But this vicious tightening circle of our declining national income had to be broken. The bankers and the industrialists of the nation cried aloud that private business was powerless to break it. They turned, as they had a right to turn, to the government itself. And we accepted the final responsibility of government after all else had failed. Responsibility to spend money when no one else had money left to spend. I adopted, therefore, the other alternative. I cast aside the do-nothing or wait-and-see policy. As a first step in our program, we had to stop the quick spiral of deflation, the spiral of the decline in the national income. And having stopped them, we went on to restore purchasing power, to raise values, to put people back to work, and to start the national income going up again. Yes, in 1933, we reversed the policy of the previous administration. For the first time since the Depression, you had a Congress and an administration in Washington that had the courage to provide the necessary resources which private interests no longer had or no longer dared to risk. This cost money. We know, and you know, in March 1933, that it would cost money. We know, and you know, that it would cost money for several years to come. The people understood that in 1933. They understood it in 1934 when they gave the administration a full endorsement of its policy. They knew it in 1935, and they know in 1936 that the plan is working. All right, my friends, let's look at the cost. Since we could not get the money by taxes, and ought not to have got it by taxes in those years, we borrowed it, and we increased the public debt. President Hoover's administration increased the debt in the net amount of over $3 billion in 3 Depression years, and there was little to show for it. My administration has increased the national debt in the net amount of $8 billion, and there is much to show for it. Now, let's take that figure of $8 billion out here on the scoreboard, and let me tell you where the dollars went. Over $1.5 billion went for the payment of the World War Veterans Bonus this year instead of 1945. That payment is now out of the way and is no longer a future obligation of the government. As for the other $6.5 billion, we didn't just spend money, we spent money for something. America got something for what it spent. The conservation of human resources through CCC camps, through work relief, conservation of natural resources of water, soil, and forest, billions for security and a better life. And remember that while many who criticize today were selling America short, we were investing in the future of America. Contrast those expenditures and what we got for them with certain other expenditures of the American people in the years between 1920 and 1930. During that period, not merely 8 billion, but many more billions, about 14 billion, came out of American pockets and were sent abroad to foreign countries where the money was used for increasing foreign armaments, for building foreign factories to compete with us, for building foreign dwellings, swimming pools, slaughterhouses, for giving employment to the foreign unemployed, foreign boondoggling, if you like it. Now those dollars, 14 billion of them, were just as good American money, just as hard earned, just as much the reward of thrift as the dollars that we've spent these past 3 years at home giving work to the unemployed. But most of those dollars that went abroad, why, they're gone for good. Those billions lost to us under previous administrations do not, by the way, include the other billions loaned by the United States to foreign governments during and immediately after the war. And so I ask you the simple question, hasn't it been a sounder investment for us during these past 3 years to spend $8 billion for American industry, American farms, American homes, and the care of American citizens? Now, my friends, I've used that figure of $8 billion as representing the net increase in our national debt. And immediately, people will rush into print or run to the microphone to tell you that my arithmetic is all wrong. They will tell you that the increase in the national debt is 13 billion instead of 8. Now, that is technically and morally just as correct as if someone were to try to scare you about the condition of your bank by telling you all about its liabilities and not telling you about its assets. And that is technically and morally just as correct as telling you good people in Pennsylvania that none of your bank deposits or insurance policies are any good. When you are told that the United States Treasury has 13 billion more of liabilities than it had in 1933, you should also be told that it has $6 billion of increased assets to set off against those liabilities. Yes, in 3 years, our net national debt has increased $8 billion. But in 2 years of the recent war, it increased as much as $25 billion. National defense and the future of America were involved in 1917 and 18. National defense and the future of America were also involved in 1933. Don't you believe that the saving of America has been cheap at that price? And incidentally, my friends, tonight is an anniversary in the affairs of your government that I want to celebrate with you and the American people. It is October 1st, and it marks the end of a whole year in which there has not been a single national bank failure in all the United States. But wait, it's been 55 years, not 12 long years, but 55 years since that kind of a record has been established. You and I can take this occasion to rejoice in that record. It is proof that the program has worked. Compare the scoreboard that you have in Pittsburgh now with the scoreboard that you had when I stood here at second base in this field 4 years ago. At that time, as I drove through these great valleys, I could see mile after mile of mill, the greatest mill and factory area in the world, a dead panorama of silent black structures and smokeless stacks. I saw idleness and hunger instead of the whirl of machinery. And today, as I came north from West Virginia, I saw mines operating. I found bustle and light, the hiss of steam, the ring of steel on steel, the roaring song of industry. And now one word in closing about this foolish fear, about the crushing load the debt will impose on your children and mine. This debt is not going to be paid by oppressive taxation on future generations. It's not going to be paid by taking away the hard-won savings of the present generation. It is going to be paid out of an increased national income and increased individual income produced by increasing national prosperity. is, looking back over these years, that we are doing better than we anticipated in 33. The national income has gone up faster than we dared then to hope. Deficits have been less than we expected. Treasury receipts are increasing. And incidentally, the national debt today, in relation to the national income, is much less than it was in 1933 when this administration took office. One word more. They're simple figures. Keep them in the front of your head. The national income in 1932 was $38 billion. In 1935, it was $53 billion. And this year it will be well over $60 billion. And if it keeps on rising at the present rate, as I am confident it will, the receipts of the government, without imposing any additional taxes, will within a year or two be sufficient to care for all ordinary and relief expenses of the government, in other words, to balance the budget. The government of this great nation, solvent, sound in credit, is coming through a crisis as grave as war, coming through without having sacrificed American democracy or the ideals of American life.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the President of the United States in the second of his formal political addresses in this campaign for re-election.
And here we are back in the studio to tell you that the Yankees are having a field day at the Polo Grounds in New York. Schumacher started out and was knocked out of the box, to be followed by Smith, who was promptly also knocked out of the box, and the right-hander Dick Kaufman has finally taken Smith's place as the giant pitcher. Lazari homered with the bases filled for the Yanks in the first half of the third inning. The score is now 9-1 in favor of the Yanks as we come to the close of the first half of the third inning. That's all the scores now, so back to Hal Totten and Comiskey Ball.
And the score is still 3-1 in favor of the White Sox at the end of the fifth inning. Now I think, Fred, you got a little message to say again, huh?
Yes, I have, Hal Totten. You know, you've been saying that things were coming across the letters all afternoon, so supposing we say a few letters like this is the voice of labor. WCFL, Chicago.
Oh, I guess I see what you got to do. Be a studio announcer. You got to be able to come up with things like that. Quickies, huh?
Oh. I get it. Should have taken longer, though, Fred. I'm still chewing. Here we go in the sixth inning. Gillett at bat started off with the Cubs. And the first pitch is too low. It's ball one. One ball on Gillett.
That Yankee game down there in New York, when the Yankee power really started to turn down the heat, more or less, emphasized the fact that the Giants are really, in this series, one Carl Hopper. It's pretty hard to say at any time that a ball club is no stronger than any one man. But if Schumacher can't do it, and Smith couldn't stop them, then I don't know what they can expect in a case like this. For the simple reason that now Hubble is almost certainly got to come back tomorrow. There's a good chance he won't, that's true. There's a good chance somebody else, he's a pretty good... But if Fitzsimmons pitches tomorrow, great cat, the way these Yankees turned on the heat today, he might very easily lose. Then Hubble comes back with a full 3-day rest,
and they can't very well use him again in the series. If Hubble tomorrow, with 2 full days of rest, and here sometimes in a bear-down situation like this, you can do that, and although you'll find Hubble and others even doing it for this season, then if Fitzsimmons might come back and do it, somebody else, maybe Schumacher, and between the two of them win one game, then Hubble gets another crack at him after 2 more days' rest, and they might be back in there. You can't ever tell. So it looks as though it's on Hubble's shoulders and practically no one else's. Here in Chicago, the collapse of the Cubs' defense has been probably even more startling than the collapse of the Cubs' much-heralded pitching staff. Because the pitching staff certainly hasn't held up, and yet in yesterday's game in which Lee lost, the defense collapsed to start him on his way, and in today, the very first inning, the defense collapsed, and then the big 8-run 6th inning, the defense was also very poor. The Cubs coming up with 4 errors today, 2 in that inning, to make it just too bad. Throws. And in the first inning it did. But when those White Sox hitters started to take cracks at Warnke in the 6th inning, there was what's known as 2 of the most dangerous hitting teams in the American League. Find this National League pitching not so very difficult after all, although, as I said, it is to be seen in the composite box scores of the 2 games played. Yankee composite box score first. You find the Yankees as a team hitting .329 in 2 games, while the Giants as a team are hitting only .231. The strange part of it is that fellows and health fellows who have made hits in 8 with 3 hits and is hitting 4 hits and 9 and 444. Ott with 2 hits and 6 trips is 333. Mancuso with 2 hits and 5 trips is 400. And Jackson is the only regular under 300, and he has 1 hit and 8 times at bat with 125. I mean by that the only regular who has made a hit. Hubble himself has a batting average of 500 with his 2 hits and 4 times at bat. And Davis in there as a pinch hitter today made a hit to have a batting average of 1,000. But Moore has been held hitless in 10 times at bat, Lieber in 4, Ripple in 2, and Whitehead in 7. Now, compare to that the fact that the Yankees find only 1 man who is engaged in either of these 2 games that hasn't made at least 1 hit. And that is Charlie Ruffing, the pitcher who pitched the opening game of the series and was shut out in 3 times at bat. In fact, he struck out 2 of those 3 times. So everybody in the lineup, including Gomez, the pitcher today, has had something to do in the batting line. Now, when you have the hitting running all the way up and down the line that way, it's pretty tough. The most sensational showing at bat so far in the World Series is Jake Powell, a fellow who really wasn't figured so seriously at the start. As a matter of fact, some people weren't sure that he would be regularly in there, although it was practically certain. But Powell, the boy who came from Washington in the deal for Ben Chapman this year, is hitting .714, just a mere .714. He's made 5 hits and 7 times at bat and has gained a couple of walks. Other sensational averages, Rolf has 3 hits and 7 times at bat, and Frank and Joe have 4 in 9 times at bat. Other fellows are all below 300. And that leads me to say another thing. 2 of the biggest guns of the Yankee attack have been held below 300. And they're not going to stay there, at least one of them. So in other words, they've won this one game to even it up without the really serious services of Lou Gehrig, who has made 2 hits and 8 times at bat, and Dickey, who has made 2 and 9 times at bat, that they're almost bound to get before the series is over. The big shot today, of course, was Lazeri, whose lone hit of the series, giving him an average of 143, happened to be a home run with the bases full, which is a lot of home run in any league.
The World Series is on the air. This is Ty Tyson broadcasting the play-by-play description of the 3rd game of the 1936 World Series from the Yankee Stadium, New York, through the networks of the National Broadcasting Company. The first 3 innings play-by-play will be described by Tom Manning of WTAM. The second 3 innings by Red Barber of WLW, and the last 3 by myself. But before the game starts, we wish to introduce to you at this time Warren Brown, sports expert of the Chicago Herald-Examiner. Warren Brown, thanks.
Thank you, Ty. The World Series this afternoon comes to the Yankee Stadium, the home of the American League champions. The first appearance of the players here in this 1936 World Series, which is now deadlocked at one game each for Yankees and Giants. I'm going to turn this over now to Tom Manning, who will give you the lineup and get us going for this third game of the 1936 World Series.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon, of course, as Warren Brown told you, we are over at Yankee Stadium, an enormous structure. I'm going to give you just a bit of a picture of the field. Directly down the right field foul line, there is a little fence down there approximately 4 feet high. It is 296 feet to the corner. And then, of course, the wall slants off over in direct right field. It is 367 feet. In right center, about 407 feet. The wall is about 20 feet high. Directly from home plate through the pitcher's box out over second. Direct center field, in other words, is 461 feet. In direct left field, it is 415 feet, with a barrier out there about 4 feet high. And the same dimension as in right field, about 295 feet to the direct left field corner. Now here we have the lineup of the afternoon. Warming up down in front of us for the American League New York Yankees is Irving Bump Hadley. Heavy set boy, he's a right-hander. On the other side of home plate, that's Freddie Fitzsimmons, also a right-hander. That's what it looks like at the moment. Hadley for the Yankees and Fitzsimmons for the Giants. The lineup for the Giants, Moore, left field, Moore. Bartell, short, Bartell. Terry, first, Terry. Ox, right field, OTT. In center field, Ripple, Ripple. Behind the bat, Mancuso, Mancuso. At second base, Whitehead, Whitehead. At Major Kirk and Furman of the National League, Geisel and Summers of the American League are having a little conference about 20 feet on the third base side of home plate with Gehrig and Jackson. The photographers are leaving the field. Most of the New York Yankees, who are the home club today, they'll be wearing their white uniforms. Their uniform is striped in black. They have black caps on, black numerals, black stockings, and black caps. Today, the Giants, they have been wearing the white and blue uniform during the first two games. They will occupy the first base dugout. They'll have their gray road uniform trimmed in very bright blue. The conference is still going on as we gaze about the Yankee Stadium here. It's a three-decker, you know. They have the main floor, the mezzanine, and then the upper balcony. The open bleachers out there that seat upwards of around 18,000 people. Every inch of that space has been jammed. It has been utterly impossible to procure a ticket here in New York for this particular game since day before yesterday. It's a complete sellout. As we gaze here from our lofty perch in the press box, you know, thousands of people are going to be able to see this ball game this afternoon free of charge. All the tenement houses are all the way from right field out through center and over in left. And thousands of those people are going to be standing in those windows, up on the roof, and on the fire escapes and so forth. They tell me that some of the occupants of those tenement houses are charging as high as $1 for that lofty perch. It's removed, of course. It's probably 800 feet away from home plate. But they don't care. They couldn't get in the park, and they're mighty happy that they're getting a glimpse of Yankee Stadium. There's the signal. Listen to the applause. The Yankees take the field. Now the umpires are scattering. Major Kirk was adjusting his paraphernalia. You know, the umpires wear their shin guards under their trousers and also their chest protector. They're in a very dangerous spot. One of the fine things of this game, nobody has received any particular injury, and the managers McCarthy and Terry are able to start the lineup that they started in the first game. Bump Hadley is out there now, and he tosses the first practice pitch to his catcher, Bill Dickey. Joe Moore, giant left fielder, who will lead off, left-hand batter, now walked out of the dugout, and there it is. Play ball. Moore is in the box. Hadley starts his windup, and the ball game is on. Here it is. A strike. He swings hard and misses. That was Joe Moore, left-hand batter, left fielder of the Giants, leading off this afternoon before this tremendous crowd here at Yankee Stadium. And the first pitch of Hadley is a swinging strike. The windup. Cosetti. That was a swooping line drive that went into medium center field. Joe DiMaggio came in fast, picked it up on the first hop, and now we have Moore on third base. Bill Terry on first, his fifth hit of the series. Melvin Ott coming up. Lou Gehrig has walked over to the pitcher's box and is uttering words of encouragement, I'm sure, to the Yankee pitcher, Bump Hadley. The next three games will be played here at Yankee Stadium, and then, of course, the teams will move back to the Polo Grounds. Lou Gehrig, the mighty Lou Gehrig, a great favorite here in New York, will lead off for the Yankees in the last half of the second. Sonny Fitzsimmons, right-hander, winds up on the pitch. Strike call. That was a slow, fading curveball that broke on the inside corner. Gehrig stepping away and taking it. They've been feeding Gehrig slow, sweeping curves all through the series. Here it is. It's a strike. It's a strike call. Apparently, Gehrig was waiting for another slow curveball, but Fitz tossed him up, and he burnt one right through the center. Seemed to have Gehrig a bit off balance. The count is 2-0. The windup and the pitch. It's a foul. Back. Count remains strike 2. Yankee catcher Bill Dickey in the extra batter's box there, waiting to come up next. This is eyeing Gehrig plenty with a count strike 2. He leads off, you know. Here's the pitch. It's strike 2. Ball 1. Almost over the catcher's head. And the count on Gehrig is strike 2 and ball 1. Just imagine, if you will, the hearts of these New Yorkers here in this World Series having to take their choice between Gehrig and the Giants. The pitch, it's a ball. Strike 2 and ball 2. 2-2. Not uncommon for them to be unable to make up their minds to take a choice of their favorite in this series. Both teams from New York. Strike 2 and ball 2. This is getting his signal. Starts his windup 2-2. Coming. There's a long drive at foul. Roar from the crowd. Gehrig got a hold of that one and drove it high up in the upper stands. Out there in foul territory in right field. And the count is strike 2, ball 2. Gehrig leading off, first man up in the last half of the second inning. Nobody has scored as yet. Here's the windup, 2-2. There it goes, a long slant deep in the center field. Way up, going. A home run! A home run! Lou Gehrig with that count, ball 2 and strike 2. This with that crowd. That was a smash. There was nothing fluky about that one. As I said, going. It went high up over the sign out there, 407 feet away. And Lou Gehrig, smiling and trotting around the bag. He touched first. He touched second. He touched third at home plate. And then doffed his cap to the thousands upon thousands of people here in the Yankee Stadium. And they're off. It's a ball game. And they're full of enthusiasm now. 1-0 in favor of the American League. Dickey at bat, the pitch. It's a ball 1.
Simmons works. DiMaggio swinging. It's a whistling line drive to left center field. It's a base hit. It's taken on the second hop by Ripple. The throw is coming in the second. DiMaggio is racing for it. DiMaggio makes it with a slide and is saved for a double. Stearman calling the play at second base. Now has a little bit of an augment on his hand. Bartell took the throw in, but Dick walks away. DiMaggio slid safely in for a double to left center field. That is just the second hit off Fitzsimmons.
Thanks for listening to 1936 Part 4, the Soundscapes Audio Montage Series number 7, from When Radio Ruled. I'm Mike Gillett, your host. When Radio Ruled and the Soundscape series are before TV productions. Copyright 2019.